It starts quietly. You're asked a simple question about your future. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What kind of life do you want to build? And instead of a scene unfolding in your mind, there's a kind of fog, a blank space. You might feel a flicker of anxiety, a pressure to conjure an answer, but the image won't come into focus. It's not that you don't have dreams or desires. It's that when you try to project yourself forward, to really see that person living that life, it feels like trying to remember a face you've never actually seen. You know the idea's there, but the details are colorless, distant, almost belonging to someone else. This isn't about a lack of ambition. It's something stranger, more fundamental. A disconnect between the you sitting here now and the you that exists in the future. And because that future self feels so vague, so unreal, the choices you need to make for them, saving money, declining an invitation to work on a project, investing time in a skill, feel less urgent, less real. It's as if you're being asked to make a sacrifice for a pleasant stranger. And so, often, you don't. You stay in the comfort of now, while the future remains a shapeless idea, filled with a quiet, unspecified dread. You might notice this in small moments. You get a pay raise, and instead of allocating it for a future home, it slips into your daily expenses, dissolving without a trace. You think about learning a language or an instrument. You might even buy the book or sign up for the first lesson. But the vision of yourself actually speaking it or playing it a year from now is so faint it can't sustain your motivation. The gym membership fades because the healthier, stronger version of you is a conceptual ghost, easily overpowered by the very real comfort of your bed this morning. It affects more than just habits. It can seep into your identity. Your present self makes a promise to be more patient, to be more assertive, to finally pursue that creative idea. And it feels sincere in the moment. But the you who has to keep that promise tomorrow feels like a different character. And when you break that promise, the inner critic doesn't say, "You failed." It whispers something more insidious. You never really meant it. You don't know who you are. Your life can begin to feel like a series of disconnected moments, each one governed by the emotions and needs of the present, with no coherent narrative threading them together. You look back and see a string of decisions that don't quite add up to a person, because the person they were meant to build feels like a fiction. It's easy to label this as a flaw, a lack of imagination or willpower or vision. But what if it's neither a moral failing nor a creative block? What if it's a feature of your neurological wiring, a side effect of how your brain has learned to protect you? The brain is not a time machine. It is, first and foremost, a survival organ, optimized for navigating the present and learning from the immediate past. For some minds, this present focus is exceptionally strong. The brain becomes a brilliant tactician for handling the now, but a poor strategist for the future. It's an adaptation. If your past contained uncertainty or volatility or emotional unpredictability, the brain learns a powerful lesson. The future is not a safe place to invest your identity. It's an unknown country, and the mind that wanders too far into it can get lost in anxiety. So it builds a wall. It keeps you in the known territory of the present, where threats and rewards are concrete and manageable. The fog over your future isn't emptiness, it's a cognitive buffer, a protective mist that stops you from getting overwhelmed by the sheer number of branching paths and potential disappointments ahead. Your brain, in its ancient wisdom, would rather you deal with a definable today than a terrifying, limitless tomorrow. To understand why this happens, we need to look at a peculiar quirk of how the brain constructs the self. Neuroscience suggests we don't have one single self in the brain. We have a network. There's the present self, anchored in the sensory experience of your body and your immediate emotions. There's the past self, a collection of autobiographical memories that you can recall, though often edited and reshaped by your current perspective. And then there's the future self. And here's the key. The brain region primarily responsible for imagining your future self, the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, is the same region you use to imagine other people. Think about that.
When you try to picture your future self, your brain doesn't access the same circuitry as your present I. It accesses the circuitry for he, she, or they. Your future self is, neurologically speaking, a separate person, a mental simulation of another human being. The vividness of that simulation depends on a kind of mental fuel. This fuel is called episodic future thinking. It's the brain's ability to project itself forward and construct a detailed, sensory-rich scene. For some, this process flows easily. For others, the pump is weak. The brain struggles to gather the details, the smells, the sounds, the emotional textures to make the scene feel real. It's like the difference between watching a vivid, high-definition film and reading a vague, one-line summary of a plot. You understand the concept of the movie from the summary, but you don't feel it. You aren't immersed. Without that immersive detail, that future person doesn't feel credible, and their needs don't feel compelling. So, we have a mental model. Imagine your mind has two rooms. In the first room, it's bright, detailed, and full of sensation. This is the room of the present. You live here. Everything is immediate and vivid. Down the hall is a second room, the room of the future self. The door is often closed. When you open it, the lights are dim. The features of the person in that room are hard to make out. They're quiet. Your brain, as the caretaker of this mental house, has learned that keeping the lights dim in that room saves energy and prevents you from seeing unsettling shadows. But it also means you rarely visit, and the person in that room feels more like a quiet tenant than the owner of the house. Your life decisions are made almost entirely from the perspective of the bright, loud, present room. The challenge, then, isn't to magically invent a future. It's to slowly, carefully turn up the lights in that second room and introduce yourself to the person living there. The first step is not to imagine a grand destiny, but to conduct small, curious interviews. Instead of asking the enormous, paralyzing question, "Who do I want to be in 10 years?" you ask a simpler one. What would a better tomorrow feel like? Focus on a single day. Not a year, not a career, but a day. Your brain is excellent at handling daily scripts. We all know the script for a typical Tuesday. So, construct a script for a good future Tuesday. Don't think in achievements. Think in sensations and micro-actions. Does this version of you wake up a little earlier because they went to bed earlier? What's the first thing they do? Do they make a different choice for breakfast? Do they take a moment to look out the window? What small, manageable task do they complete in the morning that gives them a sense of agency? You are not writing a novel. You are writing a single, detailed page. This works because it leverages your brain's existing capacity for routine and script-based thinking, which is strong even in present-focused minds. It bypasses the overwhelming big picture and uses the neurological pathways for planning a day, which are far more accessible. For example, if you struggle to picture a fit future self, don't try to see them running a marathon. Just imagine them on a specific Wednesday evening, feeling slightly more energized after work and choosing to take a 20-minute walk while listening to an audiobook. That's a scene your brain can film. It's specific, sensory, and tied to a common daily anchor. The second step is to find artifacts from the future. Your brain treats the future self as another person, so you need to build a relationship. And we build relationships with others through shared experiences and evidence of their existence. An artifact is a physical or sensory piece of evidence that connects your present self to that future person. It could be something you write. At the end of the day, take 2 minutes and write a brief journal entry in the past tense as if from your future self. Not a grand narrative, just a note. Today, I finally organized that shelf. It only took 20 minutes, and now the kitchen feels less cluttered. I felt a small wave of calm every time I walked in. You are creating a memory for a person that doesn't exist yet. It's a psychological trick. The brain is notoriously fuzzy about the source of memories. By writing a memory of a future action, you are seeding your mind with a sense of pre-experience. It makes the action feel more familiar, more you when you eventually approach it. Another artifact is sound. Find a piece of music that feels like the emotional tone of the future you want. Not an energetic pump-up song, but a soundscape that embodies the calm, the clarity, or the quiet confidence you associate with that future self. Listen to it briefly when you are calm. This creates an auditory anchor. The brain ties emotions strongly to sound. When you then need to make a decision for that future self, playing that sound for 30 seconds can shift your neurological state just enough to make that distant person feel more real, more connected to you. It's like hearing their theme song. The third step is to practice compassionate betrayal. This is the hardest part. Your present self has needs, cravings, and a powerful voice. It wants comfort, certainty, and dopamine now. To act for your future self will always feel, in the moment, like a betrayal of your present self. You are choosing the quiet tenant in the dim room over the loud occupant in the bright room. If you frame this as a war where you must defeat or discipline your present self, you'll burn out. The present self is too strong, too rooted in your biology. Instead, acknowledge the betrayal with compassion. When you choose to save money instead of make an impulsive purchase, literally say to yourself, I know this feels like I'm saying no to you right now.
It's uncomfortable. I'm choosing to do this for the other one, for later. This does two things psychologically. First, it validates the present emotion, which reduces the neural tension of cognitive dissonance. The brain hates unresolved conflict. Second, it reinforces the separate reality of the future self. You're not being mean to yourself. You are making a choice for someone else you care about. It transforms an internal conflict into a form of interpersonal ethics, which the brain is better equipped to handle. For example, when you choose to go to bed early instead of watching one more episode, your present self grumbles. Instead of ignoring it or criticizing it, you inwardly say, I hear you. You want to stay up, but I promised her, the tomorrow version, that she'd be rested. I'm going to keep that promise to her. You're building trust between two entities inside you. The fourth step is to bridge with identity-based habits. Goals are about outcomes. Identity is about being. A goal is to write a book. An identity is being a writer. Your brain struggles with distant outcomes, but it is constantly updating your sense of identity based on your repeated micro-actions. Every time you perform a tiny action consistent with a future identity, you send a small signal to your brain. This is the kind of person I am. Don't start by trying to achieve something for your future self. Start by acting like them in the smallest way, right now. If your future self is more organized, then your present self, just for this minute, is a person who puts one thing back in its place. If your future self is a reader, then your present self is a person who reads one page. The action is almost irrelevant in its scale. What matters is the identity label you attach to it in the moment. This works because of a concept in cognitive psychology called self-signaling. We infer who we are from what we do. By consciously framing a tiny, doable action as something my future self would do, you are not just doing a task, you are casting a vote for a new identity. Over time, these votes stack up. The future self stops being a distant, vague stranger and starts to feel like a more evolved but continuous version of who you already are becoming, minute by minute. So, we return to the two rooms. The work is not to tear down the wall or to permanently move into the future room. That would be disorienting and untrue. The work is to become the caretaker who intentionally turns up the dimmer switch just a little each day. To open the door and deliver a small artifact, a written note, a sound, a report of a tiny action taken. To speak kindly to the present room's occupant when you leave to make a delivery to the other. You are not building a blueprint for a life, which is rigid and frightening. You are building a relationship with a person. A relationship built on small, consistent acts of recognition and trust. The fog over your future isn't a barrier to your success. It's the natural atmosphere of a relationship not yet formed. Clarity doesn't come from suddenly seeing the end of the path. It comes from recognizing the features of the person walking beside you in the mist and realizing, with a slow dawning, that it has been you all along, just a few steps ahead, waiting for you to catch up. In the end, the most profound shift may not be that you finally see a vivid, high-definition movie of your future.
It might be that you stop needing to, that you become comfortable with the gentle rhythm of this internal diplomacy, the quiet acknowledgement that every day you were negotiating a peace treaty between who you are and who you are becoming. The tension between them isn't a problem to be solved. It's the very engine of a conscious life. And perhaps in learning to listen to both voices, the loud one of now and the quiet one of then, you discover you are not a single point in time, but the entire conversation. And a conversation can move forward, even when it can't see its final destination.